everyone. I am presenting this from Thailand, Chiang Mai, Northern. So the outline of this paper includes discussion about what are the different types of articles in a typical journal. And secondly, who will be the audience of these different articles? Third, what will be the content of these different forms of articles? What are the purposes? How different will the methodology be in each of these different types of articles? How original do we expect these articles to be? And what is the review process? What types of data are collected in the different types of journals? Citation, theory and practice, the focus of these papers, the structure of the paper, the length of the paper, the tone of the paper, the conclusion of each paper, the authorship and publication. All of these are taken into consideration when we look at the different types of articles. We need to take one step back and look at what are the different types of papers presented in a typical international journal. And they are in fact the following. One, it's sometimes called academic article, sometimes called conceptual article. Two, research article. Three, review articles. They are totally different types of articles. In well-established international articles, they have three different sections for these papers. The first one is called conceptual or academic articles. Second one is research article, and usually they end with review articles. So they don't just jumble and put all articles in one place because they are totally different and should be treated differently. So let's go first to conceptual articles, sometimes called academic articles, in comparison with research articles. Take a look. So we will compare and contrast. Academic articles, again, or what we call as conceptual articles, have the academic community as its primary audience. On the other hand, research articles focus on the work of researchers and therefore appeal to researchers who would look at the methodology, the rigor of the ways by which the papers are written, scholars and specialists in the areas. If you have specialists in mathematics, engineering, and artificial intelligence, they will scrutinize what you have done, which will be very different from academic articles. In terms of content, academic articles can deal with a wide range of issues, but research articles report on original research findings. So that's already a very big difference. Academic articles do not have to be original, meaning the sources are from somewhere else, from which they prepare the article. The purpose of academic articles is to inform students, to educate people, or to give a point of view. For instance, you can read articles from the journals or even from the media, looking at the point of view of Israel, or you can look at from the point of view of Gaza, or from the point of view of the US, or the United Kingdom, or Germany, or South Africa. Whereas in research article, you don't just report on what is out there. You will make a contribution to new knowledge. So the writing will be very different. In terms of methodology, academic articles do not really need a section called methodology, or if they need, not a detailed one. However, research articles require a robust methodology section. So very different. Academic articles, you're presenting to class, to students, to high school, to college level students. You just report on what's out there. In research articles, you have to show how did you get the information about women, children, doctors, humanitarian aid workers in Gaza, the IDF, Netanyahu, the prime minister, the president, members of the Knesset and the general public. How did you get that information? So the treatment will be very different in an academic or conceptual article on one and research article on the other. Academic articles are not really original, except that you can give your own final synthesis of how to put things together. For instance, you can say, well, there are valid arguments from Israel, such as self-defense, and Gaza has valid arguments that you have the civilian population who are being attacked, not purportedly the H group. So what are you defending against, civilian population or the H group? So you are showing two views in your synthesis. You can also give the other view. However, Israel does not really have the right to self-defense because it is an occupier. Occupiers do not have the right because they are foreign entities. Or Gazans don't have the right to complain because it's the H group is hiding under the skirt of the civilian population. Whatever, you can show the two sides of the argument. In research article, you don't just do that. You have actually, let's say, Médecins Sans Frontières or Reporters Sans Frontières actually going to Gaza and to the southern part of Gaza or to Israel, to the Knesset, and talk with the people, see firsthand, take video documentation, and write about it. So they are written differently, the research process is different, and the publication will yield to different results. So the academic article seems to be detached. I just write what's out there, I put things together. In research article, you actually produce knowledge. You are the knowledge producer. What about the review process? Academic articles, can be subjected to review. However, research articles are subjected to robust or rigorous peer review. In some parts of the world, it's 2 reviewers. In Thailand, the requirement is 3 minimum reviewers. Of course, we know many places are 2, but each country is different. So Thailand requires 3 minimum to be considered valid review process. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying they're just different. Sources of data for academic articles, existing knowledge. You go to Twitter, you go to Instagram, you go to TikTok, or you go to the mainstream media, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox News, or whatever is out there. In research article, you don't do that. You can refer to them, but you actually would fly to Egypt or to Jordan and cross the border and go to Gaza or go to Israel and see for yourself, talk with people, interview people. And then the sources of data of academic articles or conceptual articles are basically secondary sources based on existing knowledge. And research article based primarily on original research data. You gather the information yourself. So they are very different. So you have to explain how you got the information because it's primary. You have to prove beyond doubt that your sources are valid, legitimate. That's why you have reliability and validity. You have to do those things as part of the requirement methodology. In academic article, you don't do that because they're published. You say, if you don't trust CNN, then the problem is the trustworthiness of CNN as a source. It's not that what they're saying is right or wrong, but you're questioning CNN. In research article, you are questioning the author herself or himself or themselves. So very different sources of information or data that you're looking at. And if you're looking for statistics, academic articles are, okay, I'm looking at the impact of gross domestic product over 33 years on the health and longevity of women. So you go to World Health Organization or National Government Statistics Office. But in research articles, you don't do that. You actually generate your own statistics. So very different ways by which data are gathered. And for academic articles, if there are experiments already done, you look at the experiments already done and already published. So you just write on, there are many articles like this, in fact, like in PubMed. They would say there are many studies about the efficaciousness of the efficacy of the COVID vaccine, Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson. So there were tests for Moderna. They said, for example, I'm just speaking from the top of my head, 80% efficacious, and Johnson & Johnson 70%, and Pfizer is 90%, with 30,000 participants being vaccinated. So you would just say, therefore, X vaccine is better than the others, but subject to further research. In the research article, you actually conduct your research. You don't rely on existing experiments already done by Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson. You actually generate your own 33,000 persons who are willing to be subjected to vaccination and see how efficacious the vaccines are. You see the difference between a conceptual article or research article. And academic articles rely on already published documents. But research articles, you yourself become a part of the research. In fact, in research, this is called you are yourself an object or equipment or a tool of research. In others, let's say you have computer, you have machinery, you have laser beams. But in research where you are actually collecting data, especially qualitative, you as a human being, you are a tool of research yourself. So very different treatment. And so you engage in participant observation, interview, focus group. But if you do the experiments or statistics, you would generate your own survey, closed-ended questions survey. Okay. So an example of a conceptual article that I have written, this was published and indexed in ERIC. It's called Performance and Learning. But where's the social justice, ideology and human resource development, critical analysis, synthesis, and future research? So this was presented in Indianapolis, Indiana, USA, and it was published and indexed in ERIC. So as you can see, I never said anything about a participant observation or anything like that. So this is based on the literature. So after gathering the literature, I organize all the literature. I say, aha, there are two major findings in the literature about human resource development and adult learning. One, it's production. Many of the instruments and the performance appraisal is performance. How your output. Fine. So it is over measured. Like if you don't perform, we will fire you. Excuse me. But there's also another aspect, learning. So many firms will give you budget, full scholarship or partial scholarship to do a master or PhD or MBA or to attend workshops. So this is to enhance your personal growth. So I categorize there are two major goals of human resource development. Something is lacking. It is, what about change? Do they talk about change or no, they don't usually. So I say this is a gap in the literature. So I made this table to show the typology that I created. This is my model. One is production, two is knowledge, and three, I added change because it's absent in the literature. And going further, I look at so many hundreds of literature and I organize them into a matrix. So there's conservative human resource development. I classify it not in the literature. There's libertarian human resource development, and there's critical human resource development. And how do I measure them? So I have all of the criteria in terms of power, what they teach, the audience, the general purpose, specific purpose, the focus, the nature of the work, class analysis, and so on and so forth. I created this, another model that I created. So this is showing how different the three types of human resources development are. And I created a new one. Not really there's literature on critical human resource development, but I put all of the literature into this matrix. I created this matrix to compare and contrast the three different types of human resource development. That's one example. So there was nothing that I did not go out anywhere. I just went to the library search and did it. EBSCO, Web of Science, PubMed, Scopus, journals. Excuse me. Another article, which I published, is called The International Political Economy of Nature and Society, From Climate Emergency to Climate Justice in Our Culture. Again, this is conceptual. This is based on the literature. Okay, and then I created my own model. So what are the causes of the crisis of climate change? I say they are here. Fossil fuel produces greenhouse gases. Among them are petroleum, coal, and natural gas, leading to economic globalization, greed, and profit. And we're told to use products produced by the big factories and to buy private cars, so we emit more pollution instead of public transport. In agriculture, you have big companies producing junk food, and consumers have no choice. And all of these lead to crisis of climate change. And the impact will be on health, on coastal areas, biodiversity, agriculture, water, and forest. And then I create exactly the same model, and what are the alternatives? So instead of having fossil fuel, we will mainstream alternative renewable energy. Instead of greed and profit, we will have cooperative model in our society. Instead of climate change, we have the mitigation of climate change in the same areas: health, coastal area, biodiversity, agriculture, water, and forest. Okay, so using the same model of the cause, I fill in the blank for the solution. What can we do to change the situation? This was my proposition, all based on literature. This is now a different paper. This is a research article, almost like the conceptual paper earlier. You see, it's called Performance Learning but versus Social Justice, based on the literature per se only. But then a research paper is Performance Learning and Social Justice, the same variables, but theorizing human resource development practices. So this is reality. In the International Training Office, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So I work at the International Training Office of the Division of International Affairs in one place in Chicago, and I presented the paper in Indianapolis. And this paper is a product of my actual work in the Human Resource Development Office. Yesterday means in the past, today means at that time when I wrote the paper, tomorrow would be my recommendation. So I gave 3 timelines. So this is it. Again, the same. You have performance, learning, and social justice. I organize this differently, but based on my actual experiences. This is not what the theory says. This is what I actually learned. Okay, so every year we are evaluated on performance. Performance appraisal. How well did you work? How good are you? Did you produce or organize many international training programs? Okay, so you perform well. Okay, good. Learning, I also had that. I was very lucky. Every time there's professional development, I tell my supervisor, there's a training on teaching techniques. There's a training on how to do PowerPoint presented files. And then there's training on the different tools for using Excel and so on, SPSS, SAS. So my supervisor always said, go ahead and learn. I said, because this will be input to my work. The new things I learn will impact my performance. So my supervisor was very happy. So that's learning. So I was very lucky. My supervisor gave me all the opportunities I need to learn. It's called professional development. Third one, social justice is, among other things, is do you listen to the people who work for you? In fact, yeah, my supervisor does. In fact, we prepare a lot of project proposals and we work in parts. I remember for the project proposal for Cyprus, for the divided Cyprus, the Sunni Muslim in northern Cyprus and the Greek Orthodox Christians in southern Cyprus. We had a few years of program. I wrote the whole proposal and then submitted, and then we had to revise it so that we can compete. We have to have different features every year. And I was able to win the project proposal and run it year after year. And in other projects that we had, Sri Lanka, Palestine, Israel, South Korea, China, we worked as a team. We would have quarterly reports and then also final report, and we will be given different sections of the report to write. So we always work as a team. So I felt they valued my skill, and we all really contributed to the production of everything needed in office, from training to the teaching, monitoring, supervising, writing proposals, conceptualization of the project, and then evaluation of the project. So I said, no, not only did we have performance, we had learning, we also had social justice. Because you have performance is top down. They see, are you working? How well are you working? Learning is horizontal. We all respect each other. Okay, go out, learn whatever new things you need to learn. And then social justice is bottom up. I had the opportunity to give my voice, to have my contribution to the different projects that we ran. So I said there's performance learning and social justice. Whereas I was saying in the literature, this is the conceptual paper, there's a problem. Very few, almost none, write about social justice. That's why when I went back to check who cites me, it's the same people who write about social justice and critical human resource development. So we are an increasing tribe. We're few, but more and more people are writing about social justice and human resource development. So one is based on the literature. The other is based on my actual experience. Okay, another example of research article. I wrote a paper published last year, in a journal, Russia's special military operation in Ukraine, before, during, and morning after. Okay, why do I call this research article? Because in my methodology, I actually went to Ukraine. I actually stayed there for 1 year, right before the special military operation. I traveled from Kiev to Odessa, to Lvov, to Dnieper, to Chernihiv, back to Kiev. So I was all over, hosted by Ukrainian families. I learned that most Ukrainians whom I was staying with whom I'm staying, spoke Russian. It's only my host in Lvov, near the Polish border, who spoke Ukrainian. And then I said, how do you feel like those who are Russian speaking? They said, well, many people speak Russian, but we're told we have to change the education system. I even met a teacher of Russian. She lost her job because she's been teaching children Russian, Now they only have one language policy. Think of that. If that happens to India, you can only speak Hindi and English. Think about that. That's what they're doing in Ukraine. Of course, that's not happening in India. That's not happening in Malaysia. That's not happening in Singapore. Okay? But it happened right now in Ukraine. They just made invisible one language speaker. Public witness. I was actually there. I went to the Medan place where there was many interpretation of what happened. There was some protests. This is in Kiev. And I listened to different views. So I met Ukrainians, even those who are of Russian descent are angry with Russia. But I've also met people of Russian descent, but Ukrainian, are pro-Russia. So all views I presented. I did not only present. So this made my paper a research article. This is eyewitness, and with my field visit and interpretation. So I produced a conclusion. I said there are different narratives of what happened in Ukraine based on my actual interviews, participant observation, and so on. Another paper I wrote, Arab Women, Education, Policy, and Empowerment, the role of gender, culture, religion, traditionalism, and class. I co-wrote with two Palestinian Americans. We all work at the Division of International Affairs. What made this paper not conceptual paper or academic paper? We actually interviewed 7 women who are Arab from different countries. We gave pen names to protect them, as usually the case in when you conduct research. Saudi Arabia, 2 of them. Sudan, 1. Palestine, 1. Algeria, 1. Egypt, 1. And Libya, 1. So we actually interviewed 7 women who are Arabs. And how does going to school affect them as a woman? Okay. So these are examples of academic research, academic articles and research. So for citations, academic article looks at existing literature. Research article would use existing literature as background. Okay. For theory, academic papers are more based on concepts and ideas and terms. However, research articles are more empirical and data-driven. A focus of academic article is very specific. What is your lesson plan for today? So you will write an article about that topic, which is good for 40 minutes lecture. But research article, you are expected to be more in-depth. Many times, like in Thailand, we have 1-year projects, and many US funding agencies do 1-year project to write a comprehensive article based on actual experiments or field visits and interviews or surveys, and write a full journal article. Okay, so very different. And structure of academic article, it varies depending on the field. Some fields, like I think theology, divinity, history, they tend to use thesis statement. But in most social sciences, you have research questions, research objectives, purpose of the study. In quantitative study, it's hypothesis. So it would depend on what you write. So the expectation would be different. In research article, it's standard. For quantitative, it's IMRA, introduction, methodology, results, and discussion. Introduction would include literature review if necessary. For quantitative. For qualitative, the equivalent is introduction, separate literature review, methodology, findings, not results, because what result? Results of experiment? You don't do experiment. So you don't call it results. It's weird to call qualitative research as results. You call them findings. And instead of discussion, they're called conclusion. Again, discussion can be put inside findings, or could be conclusion, or could be separate. Again, it depends on the standards of the journal, of the institution, of the professor. The length of paper, it depends on the journal that you're submitting to. the tone. Academic articles are more general informative. Research articles are more analytic. You are looking at what's the independent variable, what's the control, what's the mediating variable, what's the moderating variable, what are the dependent variables. So you analyze, you break down each element. Conclusion for academic article, you would say what's the implication for learning? Maybe you want to learn another theory which is related or it's opposed to the theory. In research article, it's usually further research or implication to society, like for health, if you're studying vaccine. So what should we do? Should we adopt one vaccine or should we do more research? Okay, authorship, academic articles, students and teachers, research articles, researchers. Okay. Publication, academic articles could be book chapters, or journal articles, the same with research articles. I think I'll end then due to lack of time. So thank you very much. I'll not deal with book review. Thank you. I'll stop my presentation. Thank you.